session 3, as you can see, pretty much is the inflection point of the learning curve. I'm beginning to understand at a level that permits me to articulate it just what the essential feature of this system is, which goes all the way back to the beginning. And I have noted, as an aside, that many of the tabletop, sort of adjusted rules that people have used, as I've found through the playtesting of Champions Now, backed away from it and pretty much dropped it. So people who said that presence attacks can only occur during an action and that they are half phase actions, stuff like that. Any number of other things, dropping the speed chart and just going to a standard initiative or dexterity order, any number of things that I think changed the game into a more standardized form of late 80s design and lost certain qualities. Here's what I mean. First of all, that there is the speed chart, which designates not only order of action but number of actions in a fixed fashion. Your ability to mess with it a little bit, holding actions, and most particularly strategizing recoveries with that, so that your ability to, if you're really blasted in your endurance or knockout, that you're able to strategize the speed chart in a fashion that allows you to do a rapid comeback, particularly if you're in sort of a confrontational situation, or as the cosmonaut was here, in a situation where his opponent was irrationally blasting away with an ineffective attack. He could have hit the cosmonaut with that mental attack, but it was a dumb thing to do. But as I say, the irrational action was just baked in at that point, and he was just hitting as hard as he could with the most ideological attack that he had. So anyway, under those circumstances, it made a lot of sense for the cosmonaut to hold an action as he's trying to reason with the dude, realizing that this is not happening, and is able to take that held action as a recovery and then slam in with trying to get out of that entangle by pushing his strength. So there's tons of very Champions Now specific rules, most of which go back to the original. In this case, one of the crucial ones that doesn't go back to the original is that your presence attack cannot operate against a hunted situation character. So therefore, ordinarily, he would have had a presence attack when he tries to logom the opponent. But in this case, that the presence didn't even get dice. So when he realizes that, he's got this whole action just floating there unused, and is able to turn it into a big heroic comeback, tear himself out of the entangle kind of approach. So that's all very cool. To clarify a little bit, and especially since I butchered the pronunciation, my spoken Swedish is particularly terrible when I'm talking to people whom I know. This is an interesting phenomenon that perhaps other immigrants share, well, which is that when you chatter away to, the person you're getting pizza from, or from somebody that you're trying to communicate with, out and about during the day, you'll often get complimented on your pronunciation. When you try to talk to someone you instantly lose all of that competence and say everything wrong. Anyway, the word is logo, and it is a special word in Sweden. It means just enough, and is usually used as kind of a golden mean ideal. And you can point to this in practice at many, many levels of Swedish society, particularly Cold War politics, and Sweden's neutrality in a number of different international agreements, its relationship to the EU today, its relationship to the Soviet Union and the US earlier, and then also in terms of what you might call, aggressive capitalist and aggressive socialist economic policies. Sweden does an interesting policy over and over, and it's also sort of an expected ideal for behavior, that you are just pushy enough, but not too much. You are just courteous enough, but not too much. You're just present enough in the room, but not too much. There's a love-hate relationship going on with most of the people that I know with this term. It's kind of prized as an ideal, as a pragmatic, very effective, way to be, and you kind of like it when other people do it. Um, but everybody feels a little stifled as well. Or there are different political points of view, have different views, different specifications of their dislike of Lagom. One is, they feel Sweden is weak. Why don't we have this? They have this badass military. They make these great weapons. Why aren't we kicking ass everywhere? Sort of thing. And then other viewpoints is that, why having set up, particularly good social support, why aren't we leading the way in 100 other ways? Why don't we keep going with the progressive reforms, the direct activity upon the environment and the world? It's quite interesting. Lagom is either holding Sweden back or has catapulted it to the forefront of policy, just in a way that doesn't get anybody's head patted. So it's a fascinating thing, and you, I think, can see in the video that as soon as I badly pronounce it and they eventually realize what on earth I'm talking about, Ulf's character was not in that scene, but he glommed onto that instantly and was fascinated by how this confrontation was truly a deep Swedish confrontation. I'm a little proud of it simply because I feel as though I've internalized this issue as well as an immigrant can, and I also kind of was hoping, that I could not have asked for a better, face off between the two, with Cosmonaut with his ego blasted down to the bedrock, and Cosmonaut caught in the hazard that was intrinsic to that base of Greyface. So anyway, it was extremely fun for me to watch these rules. But here's my point: you've got the speed chart, you've got the holding actions, and you've also got the exigencies of endurance and recovery. And then finally, you've got the free actions of presence and dialogue. So just saying how your character feels isn't anything but something you're allowed to say. You give your character a thought balloon. It can be as long as you want. Your action's not gone. Saying, I want to, what this is how I feel about this now, or anything of that kind. It's allowed and very, very welcome, and none of it, including dialogue to others, is going to use up your action. So there is always the direct, what do you do? Do you hold your current phase, or do you do something? And none of that is taken away by talking, by thinking, by feeling. Your character is supposed to talk, think, and feel like good comic book characters, extravagantly do. Um, but that doesn't take away from any of the action. So go for it. Hammer forward, move forward, struggle against your bonds, do all those things, recover and then come back. All that stuff, and it's all there for you to do. Let's see. So I screwed up a few things. I mentioned to put a little caption in the video. If you didn't see it, perhaps you were just listening. About how I mangled the spy agencies, which I had done extensive research on and had a really nice outline for, and I didn't have it on me. It was, in the hard drive, and I'm cursed that I didn't print it out and be reading off it instead of saying everything wrong. But I've attached the file to the Adepts Play post so you can see the breakdown of the Swedish spy agencies as they stand today, and some of the history that's relevant here. Those of you who know my game Spiona know that I take great pleasure in addressing these things historically rather than, shall we say, narratively, dramatically, spy fiction, spy film approach, which I'm less into. So anyway, I've focused on that. in this particular episode, and you could see Ulf, hit the keyboard. He also knew enough of it, as a concerned citizen to be able to refer to some of the historical events, and things like that. So that I think was well worth addressing, to show you some of the structural elements. It doesn't work the same as any other role playing game in terms of timing, ordering, and availability of actions. It's highly formalized, but the crisscrossing things of what do and don't require game time, what do and don't require a specific designated, now it's your turn. Um, it's a unique combination, and it's you know stark and powerful in play, highly expressive. It makes actions you take deeply expressive of your character, and the hero becomes your own very quickly. I think you can even see ownership over heroism occur, in that session. So as I say, I think that's the inflection point of the learning curve, and everything after this is, as we have found in the following session, they may ask about this or that. Okay, this rule works how, but there's no more, kind of flailing at what do I do or how does that happen or stuff like that. So anyway, cool. Cosmonaut really came into his own on this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.